Greetings all, and welcome to the 50th episode of TM Technical Movement. For today, we'll be looking at the Seismic Toss, Circle Throw, Storm Throw, Vital Throw, Aura Sphere, Focus Blast, Vacuum Wave, Sacred Sword, and Sacred Sword attacks, and the Detect and Quick Guard techniques. The Seismic Toss attack effectively involves picking up an opponent and leaping into the air before allowing gravity to send both the user and the opponent hurtling into the ground. While most throwing attacks are dependent upon the user's physical strength, the Seismic Toss attack is unique in that it relies completely on gravitational acceleration to deal damage. As Pokémon naturally gain experience and grow stronger over time, their ability to perform simple feats like hoisting objects into the air and leaping into the air while still holding them increases steadily at about the same rate. As such, the Seismic Toss attack involves hoisting an opponent into the air and then letting both the user and the target hurtle into the ground, and thus takes advantage of this in that the height to which a Pokémon can carry an opponent will be dependent upon the basic physical attributes of the user and thus their experience level, which in turn will affect how fast the opponent is going when it finally manages to crash into the ground. In turn, the attack has no set base power, but instead deals damage approximately equal to the user's experience level. In combination with this normally perfect accuracy rate and fairly low stamina cost, this makes the Seismic Toss attack a fairly reliable attack for younger Pokémon, especially since its damage capabilities are not directly reflected by the user's actual strength. Unfortunately, this also means that the attack can only do so much damage and is essentially capped at a certain point, so it is less than useful when in the hands of a Pokémon that has far more damaging attacks at their disposal. Even so, the possibilities this attack poses for younger Pokémon is immense in practice, and can have many practical applications in battle when used properly. It was this trait that led Silph to release the attack as TM19 within the first generation line of TMs, but the attack was discontinued afterwards because of its inherent limitations. Since an opponent has to use some part of their body to grab a hold of your Pokémon to use the Seismic Toss attack, striking otherwise damaging these body parts can help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. Otherwise, however, the attack can be extremely difficult to dodge in close quarters and effectively impossible to dampen due to its independency from the opponent's actual strength. Armor is generally ineffective at reducing damage dealt by the attack, but only because the damage dealt is set and not variable. Overall, the Seismic Toss attack is a useful move, but is fairly uncommon among Pokémon, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. Even if it is available to the opposition, the damage it does can never go past a certain amount, so it can easily be compensated for by using much more powerful moves to wear down the opposition faster. In essence, the Circle Throw attack involves grabbing an opponent and then flinging them overhead with maximum force, in turn dealing decent physical damage and sending them flying far, far away. The Circle Throw attack is a move primarily developed from sumo-style wrestling and is designed to remove the opposition from the immediate area as quickly as possible. This is done therefore by picking an opponent up and using all of one's strength to lift them and throw them overhead, flinging them as far away as physically possible. The damage done by this attack is only moderate in comparison to other fine type attacks, and the move will only work after the opponent has already acted. In fact, the move will never be executed first lest the opponent dodge the blow, but its true benefits lie in the attack's aftermath. Because of the enormous amount of force put into the attack, any wild Pokémon that gets caught in the move will literally be sent flying so far away that the battle can essentially be considered to be over. In a trainer battle, the attack will throw the opponent away directly at the opposing trainer. This will not hurt the trainer in question, but it will force the Pokémon they were just using to return to its captive device in exchange for a different member of their team, which may or may not be selected randomly, unless the blow actually defeats the opponent. This can make the attack perfect for temporarily removing dire threats from battle, but because it can only be executed as a counterattack, it's unaffected by items like King's Rocks, and it's less than perfectly accurate, thus having little use as a direct form of offense. Even so, for the few Pokémon that can learn the move, it can certainly prove to be a wonderful move to have around when the opponent is simply too much to handle. Since an opponent has to use some part of their body to grab a hold of your Pokémon to use the Circle Throw attack, striking otherwise damaging these body parts can help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. If this is not an option, however, moderately agile Pokémon can still dodge the attack in close quarters. Armor is of little use in protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the force of the attack's impact. Since only a small number of Pokémon can actually learn this attack naturally, the chances of seeing it much in professional battles are fairly limited. Even so, it is highly recommended that evasive tactics be utilized to dodge the attack, as having to switch out for a different Pokémon on the spot can more often than not prove to be an unfortunate error in any battle strategy. In essence, the Storm Throw attack is a potent throw delivered in such a way as to maximize the amount of force inflicted onto an opponent's pressure points, in turn setting them up for a great deal of pain that they otherwise would never expect. Instead of relying on sheer physical strength to deal damage, Pokemon like Throw and Pinsir that are experienced enough to use this move focus their attack on their opponent's pressure points to inflict tremendous amounts of pain. Despite how simple it actually sounds, the Storm Throw attack is extremely difficult to pull off because the force is originating from a relatively fierce throw, something that is usually not associated with such precise manipulation of the nervous system. As such, Throw and Pinsir are the only known Pokemon able to utilize the move properly without losing its full effect. Because the force from the attack is being focused on the target's pressure points, the attack generates an increased pain response almost instantaneously, in turn giving it the distinction of being one of only a few moves known that always inflicts a critical hit on the opposition every time it strikes. Not surprisingly, this makes the attack extremely effective at dealing with opponents that like to use defensive measures to make themselves otherwise impervious to physical assaults, since critical hits will deal damage as if no defensive measures have been taken to bolster the opponent's physical defenses. Unfortunately, this also means that the attack is reduced to a moderately impactful move if the opponent has the Shell Armor or Battle Armor abilities, or is otherwise under the protection of a Lucky Charm technique. But for trainers that enjoy using Throw or Pinsir in battle, the potential for damage in professional settings is more than worth such risk in the long run. Since an opponent has to use some part of the body to grab a hold of your Pokemon to use the Storm Throw attack, striking otherwise damaging these body parts can help reduce or negate the damage dealt by the attack. Otherwise, however, it is extremely difficult to dodge the attack in close quarters. Armor is of little use for protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the force of the attack's impact. The fact that the Storm Throw attack is completely limited among Throw and Pinsir means that it likely will not be seen a whole lot in professional combat, but should such a situation arise, the best tactics that can be taken are to fight with Pokemon that have a type resistance, and to completely forget about heightening your Pokemon's defenses, as it will do no good to reduce the damage the attack can actually deal unless your Pokemon are protected against critical hits. In effect, the Vital Throw attack is a superpower counterattack involving the user grabbing the opponent and quickly throwing it down to the ground after being attacked. The Vital Throw attack is one of several moves that cannot work if it is used first in battle. As such, it is more along the lines of a counterattack than anything else. When an opponent attacks or otherwise uses a move, there is always at least a few moments worth of time in between the move and the next plan of action. The Vital Throw attack takes complete advantage of this vulnerability by waiting until they rest and then quickly yanking them down onto the ground forcefully. The move itself is fairly powerful and can easily cause serious pain to heavier Pokemon, but its real beauty lies in the fact that, as long as it is executed properly and only after the opponent has already attacked, the move never misses. This can make the attack perfect for both offensive and defensive strategies, and extremely useful among Fire-type specialists that enjoy using their opponent's own strength against them, but there is one fatal flaw in the attack that should be addressed. Since the attack can never strike first, the user is still highly vulnerable to flinching and status conditions, so the true success of the attack cannot always be guaranteed. As long as this is kept in the forefront of the mind, however, there should be no problems involved in making use of the attack effectively in close quarters. Since an opponent has to use some part of the body to grab a hold of your Pokemon to use a Vital Throw attack, striking otherwise damaging these body parts can help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. Otherwise, it is almost impossible to dodge the attack in close quarters. Armor is also of little use in protecting against this attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the force of the attack's impact. While somewhat powerful, the Vital Throw is fairly limited outside of counterattack tactics, and thus should only be worried about when in close proximity to the opposition. Even then, strong defenses can help protect against its power, and interrupting or defeating the opponent before they can execute the move can help remedy the issues posed by the move completely. Much as the name suggests, the Aura Sphere attack involves the user focusing its aura energy into a condensed ball, which is then fired at an opponent with great speed. The Aura Sphere attack is a fairly rare move that few Pokemon can utilize because of its need for aura to deal damage. What aura actually is continues to be the subject of much debate, but it is believed by many to be the culmination of all the natural energies within an object or life form, and thus represents the combination of every type of energy that flows through them into a single overall field that fluctuates in a way that is unique to nearly every single creature. Aside from being replenishable in many cases, this aura energy is extremely powerful and capable of inflicting massive damage when used as a weapon, but only a few types of Pokemon are actually able to do so and thus utilize the Aura Sphere attack. As noted, the aura sphere itself is simply a ball of condensed aura energy that the user generates with his own aura and then fires at the opposition with great force, inflicting considerable special damage in the process. Aside from being fairly powerful and being able to destroy the bonds that hold armor together, hence its assignment as a fighting type attack, the aura energy within the attack will actually track down a specific target when fired and can strike a target no matter how far away they might be, and making it the only known attack that has both a perfect accuracy rate and the ability to strike any target on the battlefield. It may not be common enough for many trainers to enjoy its benefits, but in terms of being well balanced, the aura sphere attack is a lethal blow that can more than make the lives of opponents miserable in just about any battle, especially since it is affected by items like King's Rocks, helping to explain in turn why it was used for TR-56 in Silphco's first line of TRs, as well as TM-112 in the 9th generation line of TMs. Since the attack utilizes aura energy to inflict damage, there is no way to directly counter the aura sphere attack, and almost no way at all to dodge it. Armor is also of little use in protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by energy applied in the attack's impact. The aura sphere attack is unlikely to be seen much outside of battles with certain legendaries, but its power and accuracy rate more than deem it to be a broken move, and should thus be prepared for with strong defenses, as little else will be able to protect against the considerable damage this attack can inflict. Considered to be one of the signature attacks of Yveltal, the Focus Blast attack involves user focusing an immense amount of energy into a charged ball that implodes violently upon striking an opponent. The Focus Blast attack was originally thought to be an addition to the small list of completely artificial moves that Silphco has managed to come up with over the years, but this monstrously damaging attack has recently been known to exist with the legendary Pokémon Yveltal, a rare coincidence that has only heightened the popularity and power of the move in the public eye. The Focus Blast attack essentially involves user driving the energy in its body, whether it be kinetic, potential, chemical, psychic, or anything else, into a condensed sphere of energy that is then fired at the opponent with great force. Upon impacting the opposition, the energy projectile becomes unstable and implodes upon itself, releasing massive shockwaves of energy that inflict tremendous damage on the target and destroy the structural bonds that hold armor together, in turn explaining its classification as a fine type attack. The Focus Blast itself takes a long time to charge up, and is a fairly slow-moving projectile, so the attack is extremely inaccurate under all general battle conditions. On the plus side, however, the sudden outburst of energy can potentially weaken the target's ability to resist damage from special attacks, and thus reduce their special defense stat about 10% of the time. While the move might not be perfectly suited for many traditional fine types because of its special attack nature, ever since being released as TM52 within Silphco's 4th through 7th generation line of TMs and recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, and as TR64 in the first line of TRs, not to mention TM158 in the 9th generation line of TMs, the Focus Blast attack has found a great deal of popularity among traditional special attackers and is perhaps one of the company's most successful converted moves to date. Due to its energy-based construct, it is extremely difficult to actually destroy a Focus Blast attack. It can, however, be dodged by even relatively agile Pokemon with enough room. Armor is of little use in protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the energy applied in the attack's impact. The Focus Blast attack is too inaccurate to be a primary means of offense in many cases, but its performance as a backup attack is astounding and will more than make it a common move among strong special attackers. As such, the move should be dealt with appropriately with evasive tactics of the highest caliber to avoid the massive damage it could potentially inflict, in conjunction with strong defenses in case it does actually manage to connect. Much as the name suggests, the Vacuum Wave attack involves user swinging its limbs forward with such force and agility that it generates a blast of pure vacuum that strikes a nearby target. The Vacuum Wave attack is a fairly bizarre and poorly understood attack that only a select number of Pokemon are able to learn as a result of the astounding agility with which they can move their limbs. A vacuum wave is effectively what it sounds like, a wave of pure vacuum generated by the user moving its limb so fast that it creates a pocket of empty space in the air when its limb leaves a position, which then travels forward incredibly fast and strikes a nearby target. The Vacuum Wave attack isn't very powerful despite the fact that it deals special damage, and is mostly pointless for the few species able to learn it, but on the plus side, it can travel across the battlefield so quickly that it can strike just about any target before they even attack, regardless of actual differences in speed. It might be little more than a quirk in most cases, but for what it's worth, at least this attack can strike first effectively and accurately without fail, and is even affected by items like King's Rocks, and this was at least enough to convince Silphco to use the move as TM184 for the 9th generation line of TMs. Due to its use of an actual vacuum to deal damage, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the vacuum wave attack. Armor is also of little use for protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the energy applied in the attack's impact. The vacuum wave attack is rare enough that it will probably never be seen in battle, but even if it does make an appearance, the small amount of damage it can do will rarely ever be something worth fearing under most situations. In essence, the Sacred Sword attack involves users striking a target at full force with a sharp horn or blade while cloaked in powerful energy. The Sacred Sword attack is a rare and potent move known only by a select number of Pokemon that takes the basics of the Chip Away attack and applies them to a powerful armor-breaking strike. A Sacred Sword attack is in turn delivered by any of the creatures that can learn it when they strike with their sharp horns or bladed body part while cloaked in powerful energy. The actual construct of the energy is unknown, but it grants the attack tremendous physical power and enables it to break through all types of natural armor, in turn making it best classified as a fighting type attack. Moreover, the energy seems to have the effect of allowing the attack to operate like a Chip Away attack, striking fiercely and swiftly enough to ignore any changes that have occurred in the target's defense stat and evasion throughout the course of a battle. While little may be truly known about it, the sheer power the attack has, in combination with its relatively low stamina cost, make it a move more than worth fearing in any close quarters fight. While striking the horn or blade used in a Sacred Sword attack could potentially counter its effects, the chances of the move dealing damage due to the energy field alone are too great to risk, and the move is otherwise extremely difficult to dodge in close quarters. Armor is also of little use in protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the force of the attack's impact. The Sacred Sword attack is not a likely move to see in many battles due to its rarity, but when it is available to the opposition, only naturally strong defenses will be able to protect against the considerable power the attack possesses, as is forgetting about raising a Pokemon's defense stat or evasion in battle. Considered to be the signature attack of Keldeo, the Sacred Sword attack involves users striking with a sharp horn while cloaked in mystical energy. The Sacred Sword attack is a rare and potent move known only by Keldeo, and is believed to be its unique answer to being unable to use the Sacred Sword attack as efficiently as its legendary relatives, and may in fact represent a genetic anomaly present only within its species. Activated by the presence of the Resolute form, a Sacred Sword attack is delivered by these beasts when they strike with their sharp horn while cloaked in mystical energy. The actual construct of the energy is unknown, but it grants the attack considerable power and enables it to break through all types of natural armor, in turn also making it best classified as a fighting type attack. Moreover, although the attack's power is technically based off the user's special attack stat, because of physical execution and the unique nature of the energy used, it draws power more from Keldeo's incredible capacity to harness energy and special attacks as a whole as a physical weapon, so the damage dealt is determined by the opponent's defense stat and not their special defense stat, making it far more specialized than the otherwise basic looking Sacred Sword attack. While little concretely may truly be known about it, the sheer power the attack has, in combination with its decently low stamina cost and unique attributes, makes it a move worth fearing in any close quarters fight. While striking the horn used in a Sacred Sword attack could potentially counter its effects, the chances of the move dealing damage due to the energy field alone are too great to risk, and the move is otherwise extremely difficult to dodge in close quarters. Armor is further of little use in protecting against the attack, and may even do more harm than good if pieces of armor are driven inward by the force of the attack's impact. The Sacred Sword attack is not likely a move to be seen outside of encounter with a Keldeo that has managed to learn it, but in such cases, only naturally strong defenses will be able to protect against the considerable power the attack possesses. Much as the name suggests, the detect technique involves completely focusing on the actions of all targets on a battlefield and using that concentration to dodge anything that comes near the user. Although the detect technique is not as efficient in terms of stamina usage as the basic and similar protect technique, it nonetheless has its own interesting traits that make it useful for those able to learn it. The detect technique essentially is initiated when the user pushes aside all of the things for a short period of time in their mind and actively focus on the movements of the Pokemon on a battlefield. This is done to such great effect that the user becomes able to dodge and avoid nearly any sort of move made against them without fail. However, the move is not perfect, as the user's concentration will quickly begin to wane if the move is used repeatedly, and the chances of them completely avoiding any and all moves is effectively reduced by 50% for every consecutive use, capping at a minimum success rate of 12.5%. Moreover, there are a handful of attacks and techniques that are actually capable of bypassing the effects of the detect technique altogether, so the move is just as limited as the protect technique in practice. It is further stated that the detect technique also takes a bit longer to prepare than the protect technique, even though it is likely to be ready before most opponents can attack anyways. The only real advantage the detect technique actually has is that it tends to be more effective in close quarters than the protect technique, and can actually allow the user to potentially counterattack an opponent, but this usually depends on the physical strength of the user. Even so, these traits were interesting enough to lead Silphgo to release the move as TM43 within their second generation line of TMs, but the move's lack of popularity in comparison to the more commonplace protect technique eventually led to its discontinuation. Unless you have access to one of the few attacks or techniques capable of bypassing the defensive shielding, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the detect technique. As its name suggests, the Quick Guard technique involves generating an energy barrier designed to completely reflect and destabilize incoming attacks that would otherwise strike a target on the user's side of the field in a multi-Pokemon battle before any other attacks could be delivered. The true mechanics of the Quick Guard technique are a bit of a mystery, as the move is performed slightly differently by every Pokemon capable of learning it, but what it basically boils down to is a temporary energy shield raised before nearly any other Pokemon can attack, but acts as a maximum guard against certain attacks and techniques. This energy shield is effectively unbreakable under most circumstances, but because of the limitations of the species able to learn it, the energy barrier takes on more of an abstract form than the basic protect technique and only protects against damage from attacks that would otherwise be capable of striking any Pokemon on the user's side of the battlefield before any other Pokemon could normally make a move, acting more as a quick reflex than anything else. Though this also means that the move will affect all Pokemon on that side, including the user's allies when deployed, and is only considered to be a fighting type move for its specialty use among fighting types. In addition, the Quick Guard technique is benefited by the fact that it can be used consecutively without fear of ever failing, but it will add to the weakening of moves like Protect if used in conjunction. It is also noted that there are a handful of attacks and techniques that are actually able to break the Quick Guard technique completely, in turn rendering it little more than a wasted turn in battle. Despite these flaws, the Quick Guard technique can be an effective weapon if used intelligently in battle, and can be more than useful in most cases, despite the fact that only a limited number of creatures can actually learn it. Unless you have access to one of the few attacks or techniques capable of bypassing the defensive shielding, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Quick Guard technique. That's it for this episode, so stay tuned for the next episode of TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It is a great pleasure to share with you all the fruits of my research and all the positives it gives to understanding the wonderful creatures we call Pokemon and how their powers and behaviors function in their world. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more work like it, please give a like, comment, and or subscribe to the channel so you can get regular notifications on when new content is being uploaded. You can also find links to my DeviantArt page, Patreon, and Discord server in the description below. Please, join me on this road to seeing what the world of Pokemon has to share with us, and the many mysteries and wonders that keep us all coming back for more.